So first, let's understand what a good soccer skill is. It's one that you can use in nearly every single game. You don't want to practice skills that are like you use once or twice a season. You want to practice the skills that you're constantly going to be using. Second, a good soccer skill is the best soccer skill that you can use in that specific game situation. Even if it's a good skill to use in that game situation, but there's a better one, then it's not that great of a skill to use. So now, this first skill that I'm going to cover that we want to avoid is the roll. So what that is when a defender is reaching in for the ball, one of the options that you can do is roll the ball with one foot and then push it up and attack with the other foot. Now, in and of itself, it's not a bad skill, but there is a better skill to use in the situation that I'm going to be covering in the next video on the big 3 soccer skills. So let's break it down. Why is this not the best skill? Well, because think about it. In order for me to do a roll, I have to take my foot from the ground to the top of the ball, using the bottom of my toes. Okay, when you see soccer players, are they going to be quickest using the bottom of their toes on the ball? No, they're not. So they then have to roll the ball. You're going to cross your feet. Then you have to uncross your feet and then taking that attacking touch forward. Notice when I break a roll down, it actually takes a lot of time. There's a lot of steps there. And you got to also remember that when you're grabbing that ball, you're grabbing it with the toes of your feet. If you grab it towards the heel or you grab it towards the middle, your foot's a lot more likely to roll off of it. You can't reach as far versus using your toes, you can reach a little bit further, and you have the most nerve endings in your toes, and that's why we want to use our toes when rolling the ball. However, because I have to go from the ground to the top and cross my legs and then uncross them, it's not that efficient versus other skills that are a little bit quicker. So we're going to be going over that skill that's a little bit better in the next video. The rainbow is the next one that looks fancy and can impress your friends if you can do it, but it is a low probability of success move. This skill would be used in a similar situation as the roll when a defender is reaching in for the ball. However, lifting the ball over both of you and the defender is going to result in the defender getting the ball quite often because your rainbow might not be spot on more times than you would like it. So if you could, in the comments below, let me know if you've practiced or even learned the rainbow, basically just to impress your friends when they ask you if you can do it, because I know I did, and I want to hear if you did too. The next move to avoid is the Rabona. A Rabona is where you kick the ball with your dominant foot by flinging it behind your opposite foot. Again, this is a lazy move that looks cool, but it's a way to avoid using your opposite foot. Over your soccer career, you will be much better off being able to kick with both feet than learning how to overcompensate with your dominant foot. Instead, practice using your opposite foot, knowing that you'll be a very dangerous soccer player that can dribble and shoot with either foot. Some of those additional moves to avoid are the hocus pocus, the akocha, the requelme, the seal dribble, the panenka, the quatamina, as well as the ball stand. Now, I gotta be honest guys, I'm not gonna show those in this video because if you're here, that's because you wanna get better. You wanna focus on those few things that make the biggest difference. So if you wanna figure out what those moves are, go to another soccer channel on YouTube and figure that stuff out. But here, I don't wanna waste your time. Now, if you don't believe me, I don't blame you. A lot of people out there that they prefer the scissor, but that's because they never learned the other skill that's much better for them. So I definitely recommend watching the next video in the series. So subscribe so that you don't miss out what skill is so much more important than the scissor. But something we want to avoid when doing the scissor is doing a different skill, the double scissor. So a single scissor is when you pretend to take it one way, miss, and push out and explode in the other direction. But if you're faking like you're going to go that way, and then the defender bites in that direction, why would you fake this way so that you can only push it back into where they now are? That doesn't make any sense. So a double scissor is not that great of a skill to use. So going out here and doing all this stuff, yeah, it's gonna make great calves, it's gonna make your calves look good, but in terms of actually helping you on the field, doing this isn't gonna do too much. So if you're gonna use the scissor, I recommend avoiding it for a different skill, but if you're gonna use the scissor, then make sure you're planting pass, you're only doing a single scissor and pushing out with that opposite foot. So if I'm going here and I want to take it to my right foot because I'm right-footed and want to shoot with my dominant foot, then plant past that ball as it's rolling. Plant around, so you turn your body, turn your shoulders, and then explode out with that right foot, and now you open up a lane in order to shoot the ball. So given that this is a video on skills that we want to avoid, I really don't recommend practicing any of these. Now what you can do is when I showed you the scissor and you really want to use that, then focus on the form that I demonstrated. Make sure you're planting past that ball so you can really turn those shoulders and work on that skill and work on some of those other skills by following maybe another YouTube channel that covers stuff that isn't going to make you that much better, and it's going to take a while and take time away from your practice. So now, Things to remember. In the next video, we cover the big three, and it is a must watch. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on making yourself so much better. If you want to learn more about how to attain the best dribbling abilities and foot skills in your league, then grab the third book in the Understand Soccer series, Soccer, Dribbling, and Foot Skills, today on Amazon.com using the link in the description below. That skill you've been waiting for, that nearly all soccer players have been taught, but you should really avoid using in a game. Not because it's the worst skill out there, but because there's a better skill to use in the same situation that we'll be going over in that next video on the big three soccer skills that you should know as a soccer player. So what is that skill? Well, it's the tried and true, the scissor. So now, a lot of players and a lot of coaches will call this a step over. Now keep in mind then, if you're going a step over like that, where your foot's going towards your other leg and around, then what would this be called? Is that also a step over? Now, it's easier as a soccer player, as well as a coach, to just have different names for them. So in the terms of UnderstandSoccer.com and this channel, we're going to be going and calling this where you're going and doing that is going to be a scissor versus standing to the side of the ball, and stepping over it is going to be known as a step over. So that was just a scissor that we did, and that's something that you want to avoid, because now a lot of soccer players, when they do scissors, they do what's called the magic wand. They're like a magician trying to get a rabbit out of a hat, and they're going over the ball instead of around it. Now notice, if I go around the ball and I'm behind the ball, when I reach for it, I'm leaning back, which isn't very athletic, and my hips never change direction. So in order for me to do an actual scissor, notice what has to happen. I'm pushing that ball, I have to plant past that ball, and then I have to step by it. It rolls between my legs, and then I can push in the other way. But because I had to plant past it, that takes time, more time than the skill we cover in the next video on the big three soccer skills that takes one less step, which takes less time to do, so you're gonna beat more defenders. So if you've ever tried the scissor and you're using it and you find out it doesn't work, that's normal. That's most soccer players. That's me for the longest time. I'd use it and use it and use it, and it would hardly ever work. So wait for that next video on this skill to perform to really be able to beat a defender one-on-one when they're backpedaling. Now again, with that scissor, notice if I'm able to plant past it as it's rolling, so I'm able to plant past it as it's rolling, it makes it a lot easier for me to turn my shoulders. But if I just stay behind that ball and I just go like this, I never really turn my shoulders, so that defender's not going to be faked out, and this skill's not going to work all that well. So if you're a soccer player that just wants a few skills to make yourself better, the scissor is not one to do when that defender is backpedaling. And now, some coaches, when it comes to the scissor, they might say things like, well, it teaches ball control and body control and ball comfort. Yeah, no, not really. I mean, it does, but it's not as good as another skill that we can be using in this situation. I bet some of you already know what that skill is. So why would we spend a bunch of time on skills that we're hardly ever going to use in a game? Or if we do use, there's a better skill to use in that situation. Remember, be logical. The best soccer players only have 3, 4, maybe 5 skills that they use consistently over and over and over again. The ones that aren't so good are the ones that dance around the ball but never really beat anybody. So focus on the stuff that's going to make the biggest difference. Just a few skills will make you the best dribbler. That's how I want you to think, because that's the reality of the situation.